Hello, everyone. Sam here, and we got to talk about ANATHEMA. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This is an episode of Comic Crazed, my comic book review show, and I wanted to talk about this one because, this one came in the mail recently. This is also going to be a crowdfunder review because I got this through Kickstarter from the company Maelstrom Comics. This is apparently part of a bigger series. Maelstrom is doing something involving, I think it's called the Vigilant. I wanted to talk about this one because I had gotten it not too long ago and had some interactions with the main creator of the comic not too long ago. So I wanted to talk about it. So the main creator of this book is Eric Allen Nelson, who created the concept and also did the writing with someone named David McCluskey. The art is by Omar Zaldivar. Coloring was done by Hedwin Zaldivar. Maelstrom Comics is apparently Eric Nelson's comic company. And I'd seen another one of his works on Kickstarter. It was something called Primal. It was like a Jungle Girl sort of thing. But he's also done works for other companies like Antarctic Press. He's apparently done some stories for their Jungle Comics reboot. And he apparently did some stories for FemForce. I mentioned that comic in my Pulpfest 2026 haul video. So he's done some work for other companies. David McCluskey, he's apparently done comic work as well. He had these, the work I could find was stuff called 3 Days in the City, The Adventures of Mace Mesosh, and some British comic called Something Wicked. I've never heard of any of those, but those were the works I found he'd worked on. Omar Zaldivar apparently has done work for a lot of different companies like Titan Comics, Zenoscope, and Coffin Comics, which was the comic company created by the guy who does Lady Death. So he's done a fair amount of art at different companies. Hedwin Zaldivar is apparently most known for doing a lot of work on Grimm fairy tales for Zenoscope, which is put out by Zenoscope comic company. And so this is a group of pretty experienced comic creators. As I mentioned, I got this comic on Kickstarter. I funded it last summer. Because it had sort of an Egyptian theme, and it was... I was kind of interested in the idea of like a female Egyptian superheroine. I've kind of been getting more into ancient Egyptian tales. If you've been watching this channel, you remember Mummy May. And a lot of the authors I've been into, like Sax Rohmer and H. Rider Haggard, they had a very deep fixation on ancient Egypt, so this was kind of interesting, and I wanted to see where this went. This comic actually had a bit of a production issue because, as I noticed, based on updates Eric Nelson did, it took over a year to get this comic to the printers because something was going on with the printing company. Something was going wrong there. That's sort of sadly a common thing with a lot of Kickstarter comics. There's just this thing where a lot of printing companies either are somewhat sluggish, or I've heard of Kickstarter that have gone under because the printers just don't react and don't respond to the folks who run the Kickstarter. So yeah, that was kind of the main impediment to this campaign due to that shenanigan with the printers. They also had a problem because if you've paid attention to Kickstarter over the last couple of months, you'll know that Kickstarter uses Stripe to do their payment processing. And Stripe started doing this major retool where they asked Kickstarter to not do, I guess the nicest way to call it is adult works that deal with slightly risque material, either in content or depictions. And apparently Maelstrom Comics was pretty heavily affected by this. They apparently had some issues with that, and that affected this particular campaign. And apparently they've had to go onto a different crowdfunding site because of Stripe's demands of Kickstarter. So yeah, this has just kind of been a project that's been really hindered by outside factors. So that was another. It's kind of one of those things of, there was just a lot of things stacked against this comic, and it's actually made me kind of paranoid about doing a Kickstarter campaign. I'm planning to do one in like October and November. It's not going to be anything close to the risqueness of some of these comics, but not. But you know, there have been things, reports of Stripe demanding projects get taken off for some rather flimsy reasons. So yeah, it's kind of a weird situation on Kickstarter. So I kind of wanted to talk about Maelstrom just so they get a little bit of attention, considering the hardships that have been hoisted upon them by Kickstarter. So, yeah. So, what is the plot of Anathema? Well, the plot is this is a tie-in to another Maelstrom Comics series called The Vigilant, which, as I understand it, is like different figures from like ancient societies like coming together to make like a Justice League. Like there's Anathema, the Egyptian one. There's like a Native American superheroine. I actually have the first issue of The Vigilant that I'll review next week. But that'll be for next week. And supposedly Anathema is one of the characters in that. And but this is meant to be sort of Anathema's origin story. Apparently The Vigilant doesn't really show that. And this story involves a woman named Sarah Nassir, who is this English woman who accompanies her father on an expedition to Egypt to find an ancient temple. Which, you know, makes sense. That's a common story theme with ancient Egypt stories. However, some of the party, in fact, a lot of the people in their party have nefarious plans, some of them involving Sarah herself. So that's the essential setup to the story. So, what works about Anathema? Well, I think the thing that really stood out to me was the artwork and the coloring. Because I can't show you what's in this comic for a reason I'll talk about in a minute, but the coloring in the artwork is actually very good. You can tell that the Zaldivars had a lot of experience in their craft, because the illustrations are actually pretty good. It's you know, some of the backgrounds are a little sparse, but for the most part, the actual illustrations of the characters and the coloring of the environments is pretty good. Obviously, there's a lot of browns because it's, in deserty Egypt, but I thought that the artwork and coloring was pretty good. So, thumbs up to the Zaldivars for that. I also thought that the cover I got, this was the cover I got for this one, and this was by an artist named Steve Ferris, and this actually wasn't the main cover art. There was a default cover that was done in the campaign, and this was a specialized cover, Steve Ferris, and I actually thought it was the best one of the bunch because it just had a good thing of like Anathema posing with this ring of power around her hand in the middle of an ancient temple. It's like, yeah, it's a pretty good comic cover. So, yeah, I really enjoyed that element. Other thing I kind of liked was the story is kind of vague about the time period, but it's heavily implied to be the modern day, and I kind of thought it was sort of an interesting idea to have like a modern day Egyptian expedition, but sort of hearkening back to that classical like 1920s 30s era of when Western nations would go into Egypt to do expeditions. It was kind of an interesting hearkening back to that kind of era. And I sort of liked the idea that just because things are modern does not necessarily mean everything goes smoothly. So that's kind of an interesting concept. I kind of like that they sort of still do a classical ancient Egyptian expedition in the modern day. I also kind of liked the concept that's brought up towards the end of the comic, where the idea is that these Egyptian deities reignite their ancient feuds, and they kind of do the old ancient deity thing of picking vessels to be the instruments of their will. Kind of similar to what's his name, Moon Knight in the Marvel universe. Kind of a similar concept. So that's always kind of an interesting idea of higher beings suffusing people with powers, but oftentimes to do the will of these higher deities. So that's always kind of a cool concept to me, because it kind of plays with that idea of, how much of this is your free will and how much of this is this godlike being telling you what to do. That's always kind of a neat character struggle, and it's a good way to have sort of an internal struggle for the main character, or characters in this case. So yeah, I really enjoy that element. Now I'm going to talk about what I think doesn't work with this comic. And I feel really bad criticizing some of these elements, given how much of a pain it was for Eric Nelson and the rest of Maelstrom Comics to finally get this thing out after a year's worth of delays. But unfortunately, there's a lot of problems with this comic that I felt kind of impacted my enjoyment of it. The number one problem I noticed is that the characters themselves don't have a lot of personality, because you have a expedition of people going off on this adventure, but I would be lying if I said I could name much of their character traits, because there's really not much given. Because you have Sarah, who turns into Anathema. She's not really given much to do. She's just sort of the regular tough adventure woman, and that's kind of it. There's not much to her as a main character, which is not a good thing when you have created this whole comic with the concept of it being an origin story to this character in the other series. So when she's not that interesting, it kind of makes you go, well, what was the point of doing this kind of origin story? And it doesn't help that the rest of the characters aren't really all that intriguing either, because her father, Professor Nassir, he's basically the stereotypical doddering professor that everybody does. The example that I was thinking of was Professor Porter from the Tarzan series. He's not quite to that level of doddering, but it's not that far off. And again, there's just not much to him. It's kind of like, oh, he's what about his relationship with his daughter? Like, how does he feel about his daughter coming on this dangerous trek? And we honestly don't really know much because he's so busy talking about all the ancients and whatnot that we don't really get a firm grasp of his character. Which kind of becomes a problem because something happens with him towards the end of the comic that should be very emotionally impactful, but we don't really feel that emotional impact because we don't really know who this guy is. And there's the villain, who's a guy named Mahmoud, and Mahmoud is just kind of the typical shady second in command who, is very polite and nice until there's a wall and he's a treacherous plotter, which, again, not much of a character there. He's every backstabbing weasel that's ever been in almost every comic ever written. So he's not that interesting a villain. And there's even this weird part about halfway through the comic where they get into a temple and then there's this student character who I think he's supposed to be like a student from Cambridge, because Professor Nassir is from Cambridge, and he's tagging along with the professor and Sarah. And I'm not even sure he's named. Maybe I missed his name in the beginning, but he's not named, but he gets like a weird amount of screen time where he's just kind of the nerd and the dork, like going in this ancient temple with all these traps, and he's like, whoa, what's happening? Oh, I didn't sign up for this, Again, stuff you've seen in a million places, and it's just not interesting. If you've ever seen a character like that before, it's just not going to be that effective for you. So, yeah, the fact that the characters aren't really that interesting kind of hurts the comic in my mind. The second major problem, this is kind of a problem that I probably should have seen coming based on the Kickstarter preview page. I'm one of those people that I've done enough Kickstarters that I can often not read the entire Kickstarter preview page. I just sort of see, okay, does this thing have anything interesting that I like? Okay, it does. I support it. And this problem probably would have been evident to me when I was first looking at the Kickstarter page, if it was going to be, if I looked at it a little more closely. One of the things it actually says on the bottom corner of this cover, it says mature readers. Now a lot of people think, oh, that means you know a certain thing, and yeah, it often does, but I didn't really catch that when I did this. But it wasn't a deal breaker when I got it, because, sometimes a mature comic has certain material in it, but it justifies itself based on the way it presents that material. Unfortunately, I think this comic doesn't really justify itself, because it leans really hard into the fan service element, because there are lots of panels of Sarah getting naked, and that is often the main draw of uh, the comics thing. It's not like it's in the background. It's not like it's like passed over. Like there's a long period in this where she does not is not fully clothed, and the art really fixates on that. And so I am not a prude, but this was kind of a thing where it's like, okay, is there more to this than just the nudity? And not really, sadly. In fact, there were a lot of, and this is what I mean when I should have looked a little closer. There were a lot of variant covers on the Kickstarter that show either Anathema nude or showing her feet. And if you've been on the internet long enough, you know what it means when somebody is illustrated with their feet notably depicted. So, yeah, this was kind of the thing where I'm like, okay, yeah, I should have paid a little more attention when I was getting this. But okay, but even putting aside the nakedness, I don't think it's really even that good of nudity, because something about it. Obviously, I can't show you because YouTube is gonna get mad at me. This is one of those ones where the nudity is very poorly rendered and often underwhelming. Because, like I said, the art is great for the most part. The Zaldivars do a lot of great art, but something about the way they draw some of the nudity feels weirdly off, and that's kind of a recurring thing I've noticed with a lot of artists that who draw women and sometimes men in their birthday suits. They sometimes have a weird issue with the way of drawing those bits, we shall say. So even if you were not really interested in the story and you were into the nudity element, I don't think it's all that satisfying. So yeah, that was kind of a bummer for in terms of the actual story and concept. There's also a problem I have with the story is that the content feels a lot more edgy than really mature. And there is a difference because in this story there's, like I said, there's the nudity, there's lots of swearing, there's lots of assault of an intimate nature. You know what I'm talking about. And it does not feel like this content is there because you have to talk about this content if you're going to talk about or do this story. It feels like it's there because it's edgy. It like makes things a little spicier, or it catches someone's eye. It does more attention. And that to me is what edgy is. It's something that is not necessarily required in order for the story to work, but is just there to catch someone's attention, rather than it actually needing to be there for the story to work. And it's one of those ones where this was a comic where all of that, for the lack of a better term, edginess didn't feel like it justified itself. It feels like it was just there to grab eyes and for shock value, rather than because this story really needed it in order to work. And it's just kind of one of those things of, like I said, I'm not a prude. I have seen some exploitation movies that I've enjoyed, but this is one that doesn't justify itself. It's not artistic enough to feel like it's a legitimate, mature exploration of these events, but it also doesn't feel like but it's not even really entertaining or bombastic enough to be interesting as an exploitation work. Like, it's just kind of it's in that weird zone where it's taking it seriously. It's self-serious enough that it seems like it's mature, but everything that's going on is kind of getting into that edginess and that discomfort, and it's just, it doesn't justify itself. It feels like it's edgy for the sake of edginess, not because this particular story needed all that swearing and nudity and essay. If you know what an essay is, yeah. I'm not explaining it because I don't want YouTube to take this video off. So, yeah, that's not that was kind of a thing that sort of brought this comic way down for me. But there's also, this is kind of my consumer side talking. One of the things that really bugged me is that there's not that much content for the $25 price that was paid for this comic, because I'm holding this. This is how thin it is. It was a fair amount of money for a relatively short comic, and not even really a complete comic, because this doesn't show the full origin of ANATHEMA. It's multi-part. I think there's going to be a part 2 or part 3. And so you show the opening element of the adventure, but cut it short before Sarah can get her revenge for what happens in the story. And it just kind of feels like not really much bang for the buck. It's kind of a thing of spend all this money, wait all this time. The waiting didn't bug me so much because there were other things I was paying attention to. But a fair amount of money to get this final product, and it's not even the full product. It's half or a third of the final series. And this is really a problem because since the whole point of this story is seeing Sarah's transformation into ANATHEMA and her getting revenge on these men who have wronged her, it feels very distasteful and kind of mean-spirited to show the absolute worst moment of Sarah's life, but not show the complete thing of her finally gaining her powers and getting her revenge. So it's not only, it feels very incomplete from a production standpoint. And yeah, I'm sure Eric Nelson and the rest of Maelstrom Comics have the rest of it lined up somewhere, but it just always bugs me with these crowdfunded comics where a lot of these crowdfunded comics work on the idea that a full story does not have to be told, only portions of it, and it's sort of like stringing out the story in a way that sometimes feels unnatural, because you got to get more comics out of it. You got to, make up the production costs. Instead of selling one comic, you sell 3. And there have been Kickstarter or Indiegogo comics that I've seen have done that and done that well, but they always made sure that even if the comic was part of a larger story arc, they made sure they told a fairly complete story, or at least segment of the story that felt satisfying. There was there were rising actions, there were climaxes, so even if the full story is not over, that part of the story is, and it's satisfying by itself. That does not feel like the case here, and the problem is when you do a revenge story and you cut off the revenge element right after the nastiest moment happens, it feels like it's undercutting the the entire point of the story. You're supposed to be wanting to see Sarah get their revenge, but you're not going to see it unless you pay the next 2 issues. And again, I know it's a business. I know that Kickstarter money is not always a surefire way of success. Kickstarter takes a certain amount of each Kickstarter you do, and sometimes you got to make money out of something, but this was a case where I just kind of went, the cliffhanger here does not work because it feels very cynical. It does not feel like, oh, this is a natural stopping point for the story. It's, we got to find a stopping point, and then we'll do the rest of the comics in order. Because, yeah, this just kind of feels cynical where the story actually ends. And like I said, there have been Kickstarter and crowdfunded comics I've supported that have done this piecemeal element well, but this one doesn't feel like it does. It feels like there was an obligatory ending, and it's not even that long of a comic either, so it's kind of like, all right, you want me to pay full price for a, let me count how many I see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22 to 24 page comic. But now I'm going to have to pay $20 to $25 for each one going forward, if you're doing physical, that is. So, yeah, this is just one where I think this kind of represents the worst elements of a lot of modern Kickstarter comic fundraisers, where the money is raised by splitting up the comics, and not necessarily in a way that makes sense. So, yeah, that was kind of bugging me. This low content for a relatively high price, and not much of a good cliffhanger. So, yeah, that was kind of frustrating. There's also a lot of things. I said that the art was good, but the actual blocking for some of the action feels weird, because it's often jumbled to the point that it's a little hard to see what's happening. It's fine when, like, one thing is happening and the art can focus on that, but when multiple things are happening, the art gets kind of jumbled, because there's this scene where they're going through the temple, going through, Indiana Jones style traps, but all the traps are kind of like bunched together in the top third of the comic, and it's just really wonky. You can't really tell what's happening because it's trying to do the montage of, like, oh, they're going through the traps, but it's framed and storyboarded so weirdly that's kind of hard to figure out what's going on. There's also a lot of grammatical errors in this. Again, this is the editor part of me speaking, but the editing in this is really wonky, in the sense of that there's a lot of grammatical issues. There's certain grammatical phrases that are not used in quite the right way, or there's a letter missing, or there's punctuation missing. And again, one or two times I wouldn't have really cared. I wouldn't have even brought it up. But it was happening, like, at least once every 2 pages. And it's kind of like, yeah, that's kind of a thing I'm like, yeah, that's not a great great thing to have in a comic. You never want to stop reading for a split second because you're going, wait, do they mean this? Do they mean that? Because of the weird spelling. So that was kind of weird. There was also a lot of weird staging with the word balloons, because with the comics, you generally have straightforward word balloons, either being above the person's head or below them. This one had, like, really weird ones where it was connecting word balloons that were on the other side of the page, but they were framed in a weird way that you weren't quite sure whether this was the one that was speaking first or this was the second, or this one was. And it was just like really weird word balloon connections that made it kind of hard to understand what was happening, because you read one thing and go, wait, what does that mean? Then you're like, oh no, it's actually this word balloon. So word balloon staging is a much more deeper artistic thing than a lot of people usually give credit for comics. But if you mess that up, it can really affect the enjoyment of a comic. So yeah, that was a bummer to me. Also, the dialogue itself was pretty clunky because everybody's speaking very formally. Well, actually, they're speaking formally half the time, and then they're swearing like a teenager on Xbox when they're mad or upset. So nobody ever really feels like they're speaking like a normal person. Everyone's always speaking like in this deeply formal, oh, Mr. Johnson, I will pick up your bag. Let me disperse it to the tent. Like, really formal speak, which makes sense in certain contexts of the story, like with the professor or some of the party. But a lot of times it just feels weird and off-putting. It does not feel like how these characters, how they're supposed to be talking. So that was kind of odd. There was also just a lot of dialogue that was like so blunt, so straightforward. I'm like, you guys aren't letting the art speak for itself. Like, you should be able to draw these characters with these facial expressions, and we should be able to figure out their thoughts. Because there's not a lot of thought balloons in this comic, which I thought was kind of interesting. But to make up for that, it's like they have the characters talking their thoughts all the time. And it's kind of like, well, that's not much better. So again, it everything about the dialogue and the word balloons just felt profoundly off. It didn't feel like a normal comic, how it would present these sort of things. So that was kind of off-putting. So the final ranking of Anathema. This is a ranking I feel kind of bad for giving, because I know Maelstrom Comics and Eric Nelson went through a lot of trouble to get this comic out. It's not it was not an easy endeavor, and I realized that this is a very difficult business to succeed in. But I also can't argue like there weren't a fair amount of problems with this comic. So even though I feel bad giving it, I have to give Anathema a 1 star out of 5. 0 out of 5 is the worst ranking. I don't think this deserves a 0 out of 5, because there are interesting ideas here. The art is fairly decent. But art is only one half of a comic. The writing is the other half, and the writing here I just don't think works. Like I said, good art, and there are some interesting concepts, but this kind of feels like those comics from the 90s that leaned really hard on the shocking material rather than the actual characters and storyline. It feels exploitative, and not in a fun way. It just kind of feels like it's shocking for the sake of being shocking. So, yeah, a 1 star out of 5. That's what I honestly feel it should be. But yeah, would I recommend it to anyone? I guess if you're into like those 90s, 2000s era comics that were like really over the top in their presentation and their storylines, and they were kind of edgy and, you know, bad girl comics and things like that, I actually like some of those styles of comics. I didn't like this one. Maybe if you're into that sort of edginess and darker material, maybe this would do something for you, but I would say wait until the complete series is out, because I have a suspicion I'm more critical of this for the simple reason that it's just this flimsy little content, and it's not the full story. I feel like I'm sort of soured towards it for that. So I would say if you were really curious about it, wait until like the next issue or issues are out. Then maybe reading the whole thing in its full context will be more satisfying. But other than that, I wouldn't recommend this as the comic is now. Any inspiration? For those that don't know, I'm a working writer, and whenever I do these reviews, I like to talk about whether the story I talked about has inspired me to with any of my own writing. This is one where I already kind of had an idea, and this one kind of gave me an idea for an elaboration on it, because I have seen other examples of Egyptian-themed heroes, superheroes. Obviously, Moon Knight is one of them. There was another one I read. It was a female superheroine. It was in one of Moonstone Books' collections. So it's a concept that's been around for a while. It's been a concept I'm interested in. And this comic made me realize that you can do mixtures of other genres with ancient Egypt. You know, I was initially thinking superhero, and that's kind of what this is going for. But you can go with other ones like romances and horror and action stories. So this comic showed me that, okay, you can do a little more mixture of different genres with ancient Egypt. You can do that in a interesting way. So in a certain respect, it has inspired me. So I suppose it was useful to me for that. So all right. Well, that's all I have to say about Anathema. I kind of felt bad about this one because I think I came into it with a different mindset than when I originally bought this, and I know that Eric Nelson went through a lot of trouble to make this, and you know you never like giving a thumbs down on something that you know someone has worked very hard on. But yeah, this comic just did not work for me. Hopefully, I will like the other Maelstrom comics, because I actually bought two digital comics with this particular comic. They were digital, they weren't physical. One was, I think, called War Dance. It had like this Native American themed superheroine. And the other one was the first issue of The Vigilant, because I bought that just to see how Anathema tied into that. So I'll review those next week, and hopefully I'll like them more than I did this one. But yeah, so keep your eyes out for those next week, and hopefully I'll have a more positive review of those. So thank you very much for watching. I hope that I enjoy more. I hope I enjoy Maelstrom Comics' other output, but we shall see. So thank you very much for listening. Bye.